Can I have your attention, please? We'll be starting up shortly. And welcome to Lowell Planning Board for Monday, December 7th, 2015. Tonight we have one matter which is continued business and 3 public hearings. The first matter is a public hearing and a special permit request for 167 School Street. And that was an application that was before us last month. The Lowell Planning Board will hold a public hearing to hear all interested persons relative to an application by Clement Soroka, seeking special permit approval at the above address. The proposal consists of conversion of a 2-family dwelling to a 3-family dwelling on the subject property. The proposed project is located in a traditional multi-family zoning district and requires special permit approval from the planning board under Article 12 of the Table of Uses. We did receive an email from the applicant requesting that the matter be continued to January 4th, 2016, as they're still working with planning staff to go through some of the recommendations, that were brought up by planning board members at the last meeting. So the applicant's requesting that we continue the matter to January 4th so they can fulfill some of the requests that we requested. Anybody want to be heard on that matter?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we continue the site plan review for special permit request for 167 School Street until January 4th, 2016.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that motion.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All in favor? Any in opposition? Hearing none, that motion carries. Next matter is a public hearing on 71 Jackson Street. The Lowell Planning Board and Zoning Board will hold a public hearing to hear all interested persons relative to an application by Adam Redevelopment, LLC, seeking site plan review and special permit approval at the above address. The proposal is to renovate an existing mill building into 75 residential apartment units. The proposed project is located in the downtown mixed-use zoning district. It requires site plan approval under section 11.4 from the Lowell Planning Board and special permit approval from the zoning board under Article 12, Table of Uses. May we hear from the applicant, please? Yes.
Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Fish. I'm from Wind Companies, and we're the proposed owner for Adden Mill. We are also currently the owner, we were the developer, and we're the owner and manager of Counting House Lofts and Loft 27 on both sides of the Adden building. As you mentioned, we're proposing to convert this vacant mill into 75 units. The building is about 95,000 square feet. There will be 47 one-bedrooms, 11 one-bedrooms with dens, and 17 two-bedrooms. So we expect mostly young professionals to live in this building, as was the case with Counting House Lofts. We're here for site plan approval for the site. We have just a couple things to note. The parking for the site is proposed in the city garage next door. We would enter with the city into a lease, as we did at Counting House Lofts. So there would be no on-site parking or surface parking at the site. Other than that, I'll introduce our engineer, Craig Lezot.
Sure.
But you need a microphone.
Sir, if you want to do it over there next to that, that way the people behind you can see it as well, who's ever here from the audience. Okay, that way, to the right of that picture screen. If not, you have your back towards people and they can't see the print out. Thank you.
Excuse me.
If you want, you can pick up one of those microphones there from one of the counselors there and push that button. You can work off that one.
Thanks.
If you'd like.
Thank you very much. My name is Craig Lezot with VHB.
Okay, okay.
Great. My name is Craig Lezot with VHB, and I'm just going to go through a very brief presentation on the project and the site. As Elizabeth mentioned, this is the Adden Mill building. To give you a reference, this is Jackson Street. Counting House Lofts is here. That's a project that Wynn recently finished. This is Loft 27, a project that they built in the mid-2000s. This is the section of the canal that comes in between these two buildings. The project itself, and you can see the dark line, it's 90% building, very, very little land outside the building. There's some area in this section of the site that's going to be, there's pedestrian access here, a few parking spaces here, and actually one of the things we're going to be doing is eliminating some of the pavement and creating a little bit of green space. We did that, one of the comments from the city engineer was to try to reduce stormwater runoff, and we're going to do that by decreasing a little bit of impervious area. It's served by existing utilities. There is a sewer pump station in this area that was built for Loft 27. The city engineer had also made some comments about that pump station. Since we received those comments, we've gone through and evaluated that and confirmed that the pump station is adequately, with some modifications to the pumps, the pump station can serve both the Loft 27 and the Adden Mill building. At the zoning board hearing, we had talked a little bit about trash. Trash for this facility is managed inside, so there's a trash room in the building. Trash is brought out and emptied twice a week. That's also, I believe, the procedure that they're doing at Counting House, and it works fine. Snow storage, again, with a site with very little site area, for the small storms, we would anticipate shoveling or snow blowing, but big storms, if needed, snow will be hauled off-site. This is there's a copy of the site plan that was submitted. Again, building, you can see some head-in parking spaces up front. These are mostly striped for folks with disabilities. And then this is the area where we're going to convert what is paving today to landscaping. And I think it's a pretty straightforward project, and that's all I really have to present unless there's questions.
Anybody else want to speak on behalf from the applicant? No? Anybody in the public here this evening want to speak in favor of this project? Anybody want to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? Anybody like to speak in opposition? Anybody in opposition? In opposition? Okay. I'll turn over to the board members at this time. Before I do that, Nick, can I have you comment on one of your comments that you gave us as you're here this evening? We figure might as well hear from you if you don't mind.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
My comments were regarding the traffic and parking. As traffic goes, in order to expedite this project, the developer and DPD have held discussions, and we have agreed to do traffic mitigation at the intersection of Gorham, Central, Middlesex, and Green Street. And those, of course, the upgrade of the traffic signal at that intersection, we would like to make that, make the certificate of occupancy contingent on the applicant upgrading the traffic signal system at the intersection of Gorham, Central, Middlesex, and Green Streets to include a flashing yellow arrow and a grid smart video detection system under the direction of the city electrician and the transportation engineer. And that would take care of traffic mitigation. We would be more than happy to accept that. My other comment was regarding parking. And just generally, as you may are very well aware, in the Jam District, we have the Judicial Center coming. That's already been approved. That's going to generate over, the traffic studies I've seen, there's going to be about 500 people coming to the Judicial Center every day. People that work there, the bailiffs, everybody that has business in the courts. There's not, in my opinion, there's going to be a shortage of parking in the Jam District. The Judicial Center will only include a parking garage for 30 spaces, which will be reserved for the judges, so everybody else will have to find parking elsewhere. The E.J. Early Garage, I think there's a note from the parking director in your notes, in your files. That garage is, during the daytime, it's nearing capacity. With the addition of the Judicial Center and now the Ayton Mills project, which they're talking about, having pass holders, 75 pass holders to take care of their parking needs. As the transportation engineer, I just have some concerns about parking in the Jam area. Hamilton Canal District's going to be developed, the Judicial Center, the Mills, plus all, induced growth in that area as everybody develops to take advantage of all this. So parking, I think, is a concern I have. However, if the developer, can find parking that's acceptable to the planning board, I'd be fine. But it is an ongoing concern in that area. Thank you.
Nick, because when that Judicial Center opens up, I think on some days you're going to find there's more than 500 people there, especially in the morning sessions. I mean, I work in the Fenton Center down in Lawrence, and when we have housing court alone, the line out the door is 45 minutes to get in, and that's just for that courtroom itself, never mind the juvenile court, the district court, the probate court, and the other one same this is going to be. The employees alone, you're going to have well over 100 employees minimum. So I think the 500 on some days may be accurate, on other days it's probably going to be double or triple that. Thank you.
Sure.
At this time, I'll turn it over to any of the board members. If they have any questions or comments, and I figured Nick was here and he gave us some comments, and then we got the updating comments from him today, so I figured I would start with that. So,
Nick, you described that you'd met with the applicant on the traffic mitigation and come to a meeting of the minds on that. Have you discussed this parking?
The only discussions we've had, and I say, the Department of Planning and Development, have been regarding traffic mitigation. So the impacts are the traffic impacts and then parking. So they're two separate things.
Yes.
So parking, it's just a concern that I have. How you deal with it is up to the planning board, but it's just an ongoing concern that I want to make sure that I have at least made you aware of.
Okay.
I have
No, I'm thinking about that. If anyone else has anything.
okay, Mr. Lockhart?
I have a couple of things that you had mentioned, the trash and recycling plan for the building. Could you just go into a little bit more detail, and if, you said it was all internal to the building, and I assume by that statement that it doesn't impact the site plan as presented. Is that correct?
That is correct. I'm Michael Burnett, principal with the architectural team. We have a compactor internal to the building, so at scheduled times, the bin would then be taken out and be left outside the building just for a very short period of time till the truck picks up to deliver, so there'll be no evidence of it at all from the outside.
All right, so there's a loading dock somewhere.
Actually wheeled out right at grade, so there's not even a heavier duty kind of lift or
Oh, all right, okay,
very straightforward.
fine. And just one other thing, I serve on the historic board as well. Mill number 6, which is adjacent to this mill number 4, is your development as well, correct?
No, mill number 6 is owned by Lowell Community Health Center.
Oh, so it's independent of what you're doing?
Correct.
Okay, I wasn't sure of that.
Yeah, it's a separate, it's the building between Lowell Community Health Center's headquarters and
All
Adden.
right, you can't, it's hard to see where it is.
I know, it
Yeah.
is hard to see, but it is owned by them.
All right, I just wanted to make sure that what's before us is not going to be impacted by that.
Right.
We're looking at, okay, that's fine. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Excuse me. A couple questions first for DPD. Judy, I don't recall seeing anything from the city engineer on this project, and I know Mr. Lazard had mentioned comments from the city engineer, but I don't recall getting anything at all.
I do have a file full of reviews that we did receive, so let me just look and see if Lisa's was in here. Fire department, wastewater, oh, okay. Yes, we did receive comments from Lisa. And one of her comments had to do with the sewer pump station.
Right, well, I
that the
had mentioned
applicant-
that, but I don't recall getting anything on that, so. Yeah.
You know, the reason for that probably is because it did initially go to the ZBA.
Okay.
And so all the comments, I think Joe had forwarded all the comments to the ZBA, and unfortunately probably did not forward everything to the planning board. But she did have, that was the one comment she had, which they've already addressed tonight. And also a stormwater plan is required before any repaving. That's kind of a standard issue.
Okay. All right.
That's-
And then it was mentioned about obtaining parking from the city garage, and then there was some reference to a letter. I haven't seen anything from the city or city garage regarding that.
Record. She's got it.
Pass cards issued. So that the garage is- pass cards issued as a safety, so that the garage is- Now, if I could just, for Nick, for you, I don't know if you've seen this, it says the early garage on Middlesex Street has close to 320 pass cards issued at the residential rate. It is safe to assume that the garage has at least 50 spaces available during the evening hours throughout the overnight. Does that appear reasonable to you?
I'm sorry, Mr. Frechette, could you repeat that? I'm having trouble finding
Yeah,
it.
if, I don't know if you even want to see the copy. It says this is from Nicholas Navin, Parking Director, City of Lowell Parking Department. The early garage on Middlesex Street has close to 320 pass cards issued at the residential rate. It is safe to assume that the garage has at least 500 spaces available during the evening hours throughout the overnight.
Yeah, so during the overnight, I mean, yeah, the garage is basically empty. It's between, in between the morning and the early afternoon that it reaches capacity.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying is that we've already committed to the judicial center. We've already committed to a lot of development. And the parking garage is at capacity during those,
During the day.
10 to 2 o'clock. So if we were giving out 75 pass cards, what happened is the parking garage automatically knows how much spaces are taken up. The more pass cards that you, like if we give Iden Mills 75, then it closes itself down to anybody but pass cards. So that decreases the availability of parking during those times. It just creates more of a parking, during the overnights, there's plenty of capacity. It's just during the day that it's the problem.
And can I get clarification on the pass cards? If you're issued a pass card, is that parking then that is not even available to the public during the day?
Yes, what happens is that the system knows how many pass cards there are.
Okay.
So it tracks how many people come in, and then it shuts itself down and doesn't allow anybody in unless you have a pass card. So the more pass cards there are, right now I think there's 325 pass cards to the health center, another 140 to LCCPS. So you start getting up to there's only, the number just for the general public becomes less and less. So pretty soon the garage reaches capacity and nobody's allowed in.
Now, the Judicial Center, apparently, that does not come before this board. It's the state that's doing the construction.
Right.
Has anybody seen any plan as to how any of that is being addressed relative to the Judicial Center?
I myself have only been in one very preliminary meeting within the last 6 months, and there was no detail was discussed, and parking was not discussed at that meeting. Now, I realize that prior to my being here, there probably were, I'm sure there were many meetings with the state with regard to the new courthouse. So I don't know if any parking details had been discussed then, but to my knowledge, there has not been anything presented to our office, to DPD, regarding any parking requirements or any parking mitigation or suggestions from the state for the courthouse.
And what is the process if the developer approaches the city for, and have you discussed with Mr., and I don't even know what the process is, do you speak to Mr. Navin, the parking director, in order to get the pass cards? Have you been in discussion with anybody official from the parking garage, the city, relative to receiving 75?
So in general, just with the city, we've spoken to them about the fact that for the need of parking in there, but we haven't entered into a pass card agreement yet. We would do that within the next month and a half before we close.
Okay. And then, I guess, to Judy or Nick, what is the process then if they get a request, if they being the City of Lowell Parking Department, what is the process then to issue those pass cards?
I would assume that they would look at their figures and see what they have available for pass cards. I mean, they, you know, as you can see in that email, they keep track of what they have available. And like Nicholas says, during the day as it gets used, the system does keep track. So if a request is made to them, they'll know whether they'll be able to say yes or no to the particular number that someone requests.
Do
So
we know
I
what the criteria is for them to, I mean, if they just get a request, they say, oh, we've got space, and they issue it? Or do they take into account some of the things that Nick was saying? Or do they, what, is there some discussion between DPD and, the parking department and DPD relative to development?
In my discussions with Director Navin, I think he's open to giving them the parking passes. I think, you can definitely approve this process and just, condition on them getting their parking passes or showing that they have the parking passes necessary to satisfy the parking requirements per the zoning ordinance. But in my discussions with Nick, I think he's willing to give out, especially since he has night capacity. The concerns I'm bringing up is we're starting to have a problem with parking in that area, and I think there's a lot. In the plans I've seen for the judicial centers, they have 30 parking spots, and that's for the judges, meaning there's a guard, because the parking garage is kind of next to the courthouse, so they don't let just anybody in, they let the judges in.
Right.
So 30 spaces, that's all the judicial center is, the plans I've seen. So I wouldn't hold up the project based on the parking requirement, but there's a problem coming with parking, so we need to be aware of it.
And I can appreciate that, but obviously, for us to consider, in the way it was certainly presented, initially I look at this and I say, well, if we've established what the traffic mitigation measures are and you're comfortable with that, and now what you've basically said is that, and again, I think, I can speak for anybody else, obviously we'd have to condition it upon the parking being available and them receiving the pass cards, but that there is capacity as we speak today and that what your concern is future capacity, which, to me, that's gonna have to be addressed within those projects that are going to tip it beyond capacity. Now, my understanding is that at some point in time, there would be another parking garage, ideally in the Hamilton Canal District. Do I remember that, recall that correctly, I believe?
Yes, there's plans to build another parking garage within the Hamilton Canal, but that's gonna be, it's not gonna, the building of it's far off. The Judicial Center's under construction next year, and that's already in the pipeline, and that's already tipped. So there's parking issues coming down the pike. It's just.
So what measures were taken from the state's perspective relative to the Judicial Center? I mean, were your concerns articulated to the state as they brought forward the Judicial Center?
Yes, we've articulated our concerns about parking there.
And then what was offered as a mitigating factor, anything?
I can't tell you exactly, I don't know. That's why I bring in, I think my job is to tell you the concerns I have about parking. I think there is gonna be a parking issue, and I wanna be honest about it.
As an expert, I'll ask you, what is your ideal solution, other than another parking garage?
Well, I think that's eventually,
That's the answer.
I think I don't know what the applicant can do to mitigate parking. It's just a tough situation. And I think future development within the jam area, the planning board needs to be very aware of the parking. So,
But if Mr. Navin contacted you tomorrow or next week with the approval of this project and wanted to have some insight of whether or not they should issue the 75 pass cards, what would your response be?
my response would be first come, first served basis. I mean, if they're coming and they're asking and he believes there's right this second capacity, he would issue it. I mean, it is a first come, first served, so,
That's the way I understand it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting, okay. And just a couple questions relative to the structure. I was just looking at the agreement, you had the corner stabilization fund on the building. Was there structural issues with the building? Has that been resolved, or? I found that quite intriguing, actually, as I was reading that.
That would be one way to put it. Yes, there's been some subsurface failure of that corner of the building, and you can see the temporary kind of wooden, part of the program here is to actually reconstruct that entire, because of the solid masonry nature of those exterior facades, they can't just be tuck pointed, they really have to be rebuilt. So that whole corner, going into 2 or 3 window bays from each side, it can be completely rebuilt.
And from a engineering perspective, I mean, it appears that that's not a budget buster, and
It wasn't a great number, but no, it is within the construction budget as we speak, yes.
yeah, okay.
Yes, it's an expensive proposition,
Yeah. And again, this is all controlled construction, so
yes.
I'm assuming, who is the firm that's doing that will be providing the reports to the building department?
That'll come from the architectural team and me specifically.
Okay.
As the architect of record, we've got O'Day Engineers out of Providence who has worked with us on at least 30 similar projects, very extensive adaptive reuse and historic preservation projects. So people that building department is very familiar with, having done a couple of phases at Boot Mill, the Lawrence Mills, Old City
And
Hall.
if, those have come out fantastic, too. Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
no. Thank you, thank you. Nick, if I can just ask you another question on this here. Would your intention be then, again, understanding they're before us, there's capacity, you would even recommend that they would issue the pass cards, would ideally that some sort of parking study be conducted, taking into account the judicial center? And for the life of me, why wouldn't part of the funding for the judicial center include that? And was that discussed? I'm just trying to, if we're saying it, one cannot, we should be thinking about the bigger picture, and I absolutely believe that's what we should be doing, then why wouldn't there be some contribution all the way around as to what the solution is, or maybe not even a solution, but what are the mitigating factors that we can look at and possibly implement? And, we'd be looking at this applicant maybe doing some sort of a parking study, but I'm curious to get your thoughts on that.
It's my understanding that the judicial center, just like UMass Lowell, they do state building permits. They don't have to come in front of the planning board. They don't have to do
Correct.
mitigation. They don't have to do,
Project, yeah.
they don't have, so we don't have the jurisdiction
Correct.
to force them to do any mitigation, but at the same time, we know that they're building the judicial center
Right.
next year, so we have to plan accordingly. But, so the judicial center, I don't think, we can ask them nicely, I guess, but,
Right.
so, no, we have to plan accordingly. We have to recognize that there is gonna be a parking issue in the Jame area
Right.
very, very soon.
And would we've done this on a much smaller scale of parking analysis. We've had to developers do the parking analysis, and it's more of what's available for on-street parking, and this is I think you would agree, that's not really the solution in this area. And I'm just trying to think of what even a parking study would do. What do you envision as far as,
Well, a parking study could identify, exactly, the mill buildings, for example, that are condos or apartments, exactly how much parking do they really need? We have in our zoning code that since they're in the downtown, they need 1 space per unit. Is that actually legitimate? Should we force them to purchase 75 pass cards every year, even if the complex only really uses 50, let's say? So, that could be the outcome of a parking study. A better understanding of how much parking is necessary for this mill condominium type development. And then if they can prove that, actually they're only using 50, then the condition that you set forth that they have 75 pass cards can be reduced to 50, let's say, and that would actually save them money in the long term, or it could be beneficial to everybody.
okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have at the moment.
Thank you. Dick, any questions, comments, concerns?
In general, in reading the conditions that were put forth by the ZBA for their portion of the permits, I think most of the issues were pretty well addressed there. And if we were to adopt the same conditions, I think we would, be covering most of the bases. Just as an interesting question on my part, and I know you don't own that gatehouse that's out front, but when I was overlooking at the site, and I believe that's owned by Boot Mills or Inalum, whomever, are there any plans at all to dress that up at all, or have they agreed to participate with you on that?
No, so as you mentioned, we don't own it. They're doing some work around the canal on that end, but at the historic meeting, I think they mentioned that it was owned by the state.
I think that's right, if I
Right?
remember, yeah.
We thought it was owned by
Steve,
Boot Hydro
yeah.
as well, and then last Monday at the historic meeting, they said it was owned by the state, so.
Because I was by the site, I believe, the end of last week, and actually there was one of the Boot Mills trucks,
Yeah.
at the gatehouse, and someone, coming in and out of it.
I think their equipment is inside the gatehouse that's owned by the state, is I believe what we concluded last week.
We did.
But we do not have any plans we don't have any
I was just
plans
thinking,
personally to do.
that would be nice in dressing up the site, because it's an interesting little building there. I was just wondering,
It's complicated.
Yeah, we do
who
want
might,
to,
be involved in that.
yeah.
Okay. I have nothing further. I'd be very comfortable if we were to adopt the same conditions that were adopted by the ZBA.
Thank you. Bob, any questions, comments?
I would opt that they provide 75 spaces. The 75 units, every unit should have a space. I don't want to agree to any less of that than that, because you don't know who's going to live there and what the turnover is going to be. So every unit should have a space.
Minimum of 75.
And if they can provide the 75 spaces in the garage, I'm fine with this project. I agree with Mr. Snetsky about the zoning board's conditions, that we should echo those. And I lost my track. And I think the historic board has already reviewed and approved this project. Is that true?
Yes, we've issued a permit.
All right.
Yes, we have.
Then if the historic board is satisfied and the zoning board is satisfied, I am too. I think this would be a good project.
No question about it.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Bob. Joe, anything further? I know
Thank you.
had a comment earlier, but you want to come back?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is a really neat project. I went to the site, I drove around, looked, did the windshield survey, and then parked the car by the gatehouse and got out. I don't know if anybody else did that, but you hear it. You can hear the sound of the rushing water. It's just something else that really, that location, it's just thick with character. You just really feel like you're there. And, all of your senses, it's a really exciting opportunity. Couple of questions. Are you going over the entire exterior for doing repointing work and stuff? Is that the plan?
It's not 100% repointing, it's not an as-needed basis.
Right, but you're going to visually inspect the entire exterior and do repointing?
Yes, we have done that and very clearly mapped it out, specifically on the elevations, what areas are to be addressed by the contractor.
Okay, good. On the parking issue, I certainly agree we need the one space per unit as of now. This idea about a reduction in the number of spaces if they prove to be unnecessary, I think that would certainly be something that if the applicant were to come back in 5 years showing us that they don't need those spaces, they would certainly have to prove their case very extensively. But I think it is a case that I would be willing to listen to, and if it was possible to do that, if they could show that they could get by with 55 or 60 spaces, that they're not using all 75 of those, that would be in the public's interest to have those spaces freed up. But I don't see that as anything that needs to work its way into our decision now. I would want to keep the 75 as the requirement, and the opportunity to reopen the public hearing and come back and make that case and modify our conditions sometime down the road. If they want to do that then do that then.
I think what you said before about currently the need, right now we know that at Counting House Lofts, there's at least one car per unit. So I don't think it would show that we needed less than 75.
Okay.
It's actually about 1.1 spaces per unit. And this is, we expect this to be a similar demographic. So based on the current demographic of that area, I think that we do need the parking requirement. I think it's obviously something that down the road we could take a look at again if that need changed, but we do regulate it at Counting House Lofts, and that's what we've seen.
Ideally, as more of these buildings get redeveloped and as other redevelopment takes place in the district, because of your project and these other projects, and it develops this critical mass, ideally, the district will become such a walkable, mixed, pedestrian-friendly area that the parking demand will actually drop in your buildings over 10 years, 20 years as the building gets grown up. You know, cross fingers, maybe, you know, hopefully, that's what we're gonna see. But we certainly can't count on it in our decision tonight. And that's where I am on the parking. It's good to hear, I like to hear when a developer reaches a meeting of the minds with our engineer and our traffic engineer on traffic improvements. I'm glad to hear that we don't have to have that out. The other concern I had was landscaping, specifically that narrow strip in front of your building, between your building and the canal. There is a reference in here that it will be replaced with a permeable surface. I had this image in my mind of golf ball-sized gray stone being spread along the top of that canal wall and dribbling into and falling into the canal. You know, it was not a happy vision. What are you looking at doing?
I think, so if you look at what we did at Counting House, it was a pavers, a permeable paver system. And I would think here, we haven't designed it yet, but it would be something similar. So it would be pedestrian friendly and it would look, we want it to look nice. It needs to be of the same quality as the building. But the reason we talk about it being permeable is, again, we're trying to reduce impervious area and get water into the ground. So permeable pavers.
You say pedestrian friendly, so that would be accessible for people to walk, not, open to the general public, but it would be an area for
Tenants.
work tenants, okay, and workmen to get into. Okay. You say tenants, now I'm a little confused. It would be a walkway in front of the building for your tenants to use, that is the intent? Because, a nice canal walk's always an asset. Yep.
So this is our section,
Yeah,
and right now, it's called a concrete walkway.
yeah, okay.
So basically, we would be taking that, cleaning it up, and again, treating it like at Counting House, this area was here, we created a small pedestrian area. It's very narrow.
Yeah,
We want to try to improve it to the extent we can, within the limits of the project, within the project budget. That walkway ends there.
yeah.
When it reaches the other part of it.
Okay, so the walkway ends there, it's very narrow, so it is of limited use as a walkway. The mission from the ZBA is that you will work with the DPD on a landscaping plan? Is that how that reads? Mm-hmm. Yep, okay. I'm sorry, Judy, did you want to add something? Okay. Good, work with the ZBA on landscaping. That says landscaping, and you're talking about pedestrian walkway. It seems like there's a couple of different ways to get that, a couple of different ways to go on this. The pavers sound like an option. I don't think that, exactly doing the programming for what that space will be and how it would work is something that we need to go into. I'm happy with a condition that leaves it to the to staff, but I really do think, just as a little guidance to the staff, I really do think that you should not be shy about asking for a lot from that. That is where your investment meets the asset, the canal, which makes your investment interesting and worthwhile. It should be gilded. Okay? I wanted to make sure I used that word in this meeting. The landscaping plan should be gilded. This is the Cadillac, okay? That was really my big concern. I didn't just want it to be an area of crushed stone that catches rainwater. Needs to do some more than that. I'm very flexible on what it can do that's more than that, but it needs to be more than that, and it needs to be the Cadillac. Okay, the parking, the traffic. Oh, and just a question for Steph. Am I mistaken, or is this the last mill building in the district? Are there more? This is the last one, right?
There's one more.
Historic meeting last week, they said after this building, it'll have completed 97.7% of the mills, so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
the only
correct.
one remaining is that section of Mass Mills, right? Everything else,
There's
wow.
a couple other spots around town that make up the remaining 3%. It's at 97%, that's correct,
Remarkable.
after this.
Jerry brought up the question before about, we've got this limited number of parking spaces in the garage, and there's demand from this project, demand from the Judicial Center, and then additional development that we're hoping this spurs, which is going to spur some parking demand too. Only speaking for myself, if we've got this asset of parking spaces that can be used for different things, I cannot think of a higher priority for the city in promoting its interests and the public's interest than encouraging the redevelopment of historic mill buildings. That's the top. So even if we were to do some triage on those parking spaces, I would put applicants such as this redeveloping historic mill buildings on the very top of the list. And that's what I had to say, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I just have a few questions. Can I just have someone put up the first design for me again, please? Whoever that was? Yeah. I just have a couple of questions on that. So how far back does your building go?
So I think I have it right this time. I have the right mic and I push the button. So our building stops here. So this is Loft 27 and the canal, and then the Jackson Street building is there.
Okay, yeah. I'm familiar with it. I know it's all continuous buildings, so I'm not
Yeah.
exactly sure where. And if you read the address on it, it says the Adam building all the way down around the back and all the way till you can't go any further.
Right, right.
Okay. So basically, it's the first part. And you also said at the beginning of that, you do have some additional parking in some place where you put the snow. Can you show me where that is?
So if you look at this plan, today, this is all paved area. We're restriping some accessible parking spots in front of the building there, and in front of the building there, and in front of the building there. This area that's currently parking today, it's currently paved today, we're going to create pervious area, some type of landscape treatment.
Okay. So how many of those spaces do you think you're gonna pick up with that, on that side there? How many parking spaces?
Well, today, I believe this plan shows 11 spaces, and that's what we'll have.
Okay.
And as I mentioned, with snow storage and snow removal,
Yeah, where
This-
you gonna
this-
put that?
so this project has very little land area.
I know.
If we get an inch of snow and it can be shoveled, it'll be shoveled, otherwise it's gonna be hauled off-site.
But to haul it off-site, you have to put it somewhere in the interim. So where would that be?
I think they would have to,
Someone's gonna go out and shovel it, where are they gonna put it before the trucks come in?
yeah, I think they would be shoveling and putting it in some of the parking here or adjacent to the transformer, and then they're just gonna have to pick it up and manage it. It's tight, it's a tight
The
site.
transformers, that's all surrounded by those pillars, right, that are stepped out of the ground?
Bollards, yeah,
Yeah, ballers, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah.
but I can't tell you exactly today how they're gonna manage it.
Yeah.
I'm sure it won't be easy, but I'm sure, Wind has,
I mean, you can say, one thing is you can take it off-site, but, I mean, a truck will come in, usually they're waiting for a big pile to take care of it, because they're not gonna snow blow it, shovel it up, and put it in the truck, that's for sure. I mean, at least that's what we've never seen happen before. Usually, they take it off-site, but in the interim, they have a storage area before they take it off-site. So you really don't have a storage area to keep it, right?
Well, I believe that they'd use some of the spaces that might not be full in front to temporarily stage it.
And if cars were parked there?
Then you've got landscape or pedestrian area, paved area here, and you've got a little bit of paved area back there. The other thing to remember is that although they're managed separately, Wynn also owns Loft 27, and there's parking area there, so they might choose to manage snow, have the same contractor manage it.
We have no condition with that and that, so that's
Understand.
nothing we can approve or do with, so that really doesn't satisfy my answer.
Okay.
Because you can say, well, maybe they'll let us do it, maybe they won't, but.
Sorry,
Okay.
the 3 properties will be managed as one site in general. So we have surface parking spaces for Loft 27, and that's currently where the snow is hauled. We currently, even though there's an easement between Adden and Loft 27, and that actually is accessible for everybody, for Lowell Community Health Center, for us, both sides of the building, for current Adden, we still remove all the snow from that area, even though we don't own all of it. And we store it in the Loft 27 spaces, in a back space, and it hasn't been an issue. We don't expect, because we're already shoveling snow in this area anyway, because it's an emergency egress for ambulances go down there, for Lowell Community Health Center, et cetera.
Right.
The snow removal this year is not going to be any different than it was last year. We're still going to be removing the same amount of snow that we have in the past. We put it over at Loft 27, and it hasn't been an issue.
But you had a vacant building last year.
Well, we had this, but this doesn't have any surface parking spaces. So Loft 27 has always been occupied, so the number of spaces there is always going to remain the same. And, if it takes up a couple of spaces until it's hauled off, that's what happens. But that's what's always happened, and it hasn't been an issue. As I mentioned, we're not going to be removing snow from more areas after Adden than we currently do, because we already remove all the snow in areas that we don't even own.
But if you have cars parking there now, which weren't parking there last year, and that's where you're putting the snow, wouldn't that complicate things a little bit more?
We don't think so.
Really? So if there's cars there and there's snow there, it doesn't make a difference? Just as easy to move it whether there's a car there or not?
Well, we're removing the snow. I guess I'm not sure what you're talking about. If we're
Well, I mean,
removing the snow
you're
and
saying
putting
you're
it in
gonna put the
the,
snow where the cars are
There's no
parked. So I don't understand. Are you
Well,
gonna
at Loft
pile it on
27
top of the car? You're
so
gonna
we'll
move the
be
car
removing-
out, then push it in? I don't understand that. You're saying you're gonna put the snow where the cars are?
no, I'm
And how
saying,
you
I'm not
putting both?
saying in that alleyway. I'm saying we're going to be putting the snow in the Loft 27 parking lot at the end, and there are usually a couple spaces that are open, and that's what we've always done, and it's always worked. There haven't been cars in the spaces where they've put the snow on a temporary basis to haul it. Last winter, with as much snow as we had, it was never an issue.
So what you're doing is you're putting it on another site then?
Well, we're putting it on Loft 27, which we own.
Yeah.
It's all 3 sites are, Counting House Lofts, Adden, and Loft 27 are all owned together. They're three separate single-purpose entities, but they're managed as one site. They're all owned by wind companies.
And we-
So
But-
they
but
are
Purpose of
current,
the site plan, we have to have what's agreeable snow storage on that plan, or an agreement that you're gonna put it somewhere else with the other entity.
I think this sounds like,
The one available place, and what we could do is work when we developed a landscape plan. This area, which is paved today,
Okay.
we're taking the pavement out.
Yep.
We could create a landscape design in there that can accommodate snow piles in the winter.
Okay. Could the other suggestion be that you could just give yourself a letter to yourself saying that you could put the snow storage on the other site temporarily until it's moved off? That would make me happy. That means we address the snow storage issue as requested by planning staff.
I think we need that agreement. Presumably, they also submitted a snow removal plan for Lot 27 as part of that permitting process, right?
I mean, as long as you have an agreement to put it on the other side, I don't have a problem with it. Okay, yeah. And if you own both, you shouldn't have a problem asking that person to write that letter for you.
Their own issue.
Right.
Right.
I'm just saying, when you're looking at it, I mean, you're coming in on site, it's tight getting in there if you have a lot of big snowbanks. And it's gonna be issues in the back, because you have a lot of parking in the back, and when you go to the left, it could get narrow. I understand that, yeah. Okay, all right. Okay, I think I had, you answered that question. Okay, we have this. Okay, I'm all set at this time. Any of the board members have any follow-up questions?
Mr.
Fisher?
Chairman, if I may, not to belabor the point, but were there any discussions, have you had any discussions with DPD relative to a parking study at all? You have not? Okay. All right. I mean, I agree with Mr. Malovich and Mr. Boyle, and even stating that I think for the purpose of this approval, we would be looking for the 75 spots. And again, it is first come, first serve, and again, I believe all of that is correct. But I think to the point of the future concerns of parking in the area, and it may, and these are all for everybody on this, other than 4 units, these are all market rate, right? Right, and there's 4 that are affordable, if I remember reading that material correctly. And based on your history with the units, and you've indicated here that it averages at least 1 car per unit. So obviously, I think the demand is there. However, and Nick, just so I can understand, would the parking study be not just for this building? You're talking about a parking study for the effects, the cumulative effects of the mill development in that area? Or were you speaking relative to just this building?
Well, I didn't suggest a parking study for this developer. I think I was responding to your question.
Okay, I'm just reading your comments here. It says, the transportation engineer strongly suggests that further traffic and parking impact studies be conducted by the developer in cooperation with DPD staff. So that's what I'm trying to get my arms around.
I think, I think like we've talked today, we've discussed it a little bit. I think, you know, the developer reserving the 75 spaces in the parking garage, I think would meet the requirements. I think that's what we've agreed to. Anything additional is up to the planning board.
Okay. Okay.
Nick, how would you suggest that, I think you're describing 2 different situations. One, this development, and there's 75 spaces, which probably are available in the parking garage, and then an overall issue of parking in the whole area. How should we, as a board, go about gathering that information? And certainly we'd welcome your
Well, I think
future
there's gonna be a
comments
lot
on-
of induced growth in this area.
Yeah.
As more gets developed, people are gonna redevelop their properties to
Yeah,
take advantage
understood.
of the economic opportunities. And I think, when they come in front of the planning board, I think, you know, every applicant should be looked at, you know, how much parking are you generating? How are you gonna accommodate it? You know, the parking garage shouldn't become this parking bank where everybody just buys, you know, daily cards from, and then nobody, you know, eventually the parking garage gets filled up by you know,
Right.
parking passes. So I think I think as every project comes in front of the board in this area, the parking situation needs to be sort of,
Just monitored closely.
Yes.
Is there any way of estimating overall parking needs as, when this area matures? Is there any way of looking at that number?
looking at the overall number once
Yeah,
full
wha-
build-out is
Yeah, what are we
reached.
really dealing with here?
Yeah, I
10
think
years
there's
from
gonna
now?
be, it probably needs to be studied further, because I think we're probably gonna need another parking garage.
And that's up to the city
Yeah,
to initiate that,
Yeah.
but, okay. That's all I have.
Okay, just in
Yeah.
closing, just to concur, I mean, walking around in that site and looking at the development that's taken place to date, it's remarkable, because I mean, I can remember as a child going to that area, and what a transformation. And actually, I was out there on Saturday morning and just seeing people walking their dogs, and mill number 5 is open and all the activity. I thought I would be able to just, you know, stop my car, look around. I had cars behind me, cars turning around. There was a lot of activity, so it was nice to see. Obviously, this is really the last real big visible mill space in that area that to be developed. So obviously, I think from that perspective, it's an exciting project to see finally get to this stage, because I know you've been working on this for quite some time. And obviously, I think the city's traffic engineer is satisfied with the traffic mitigation that's recommended and both agreed upon. As other board members have indicated, I think the issues have been addressed with the ZBA. The chairman made a very good point on the snow storage, which is incumbent upon this board to address as part of site plan review. So from that perspective, and Nick, you're comfortable with, again, I was looking at that comment, but I think we're in agreement on the parking for this project. It's been demonstrated that we have the parking available as we sit right now.
Yeah, sure, that's acceptable. And I would just add that you should have gotten an email with the wording of the
Yes.
traffic
Correct,
mitigation.
right, yep.
The CBA decision was very vague on it, so
I
I
would
think that would be
incorporate that
better.
exact language, yep, yep, yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other board members have any follow-up comments?
I have one.
Sure, go ahead, Mr. Boyle.
Is that a big solar array on loft 27?
We do incorporate solar panels in all of our projects whenever possible. Historic buildings are sometimes trickier because we can't see them from the site lines, but when we can include them, we will.
Okay. Where this is rental, and you'll be maintaining ownership as opposed to it going into condoization. Perhaps that's something that could be revisited in the future. But the city would certainly like to see whatever solar capacity built out that could be done. I feel incumbent to say that on these when these large roofed buildings come before us, that's really seems an obvious concern. But that's really not something that would go into conditions or anything. I just wanted to bring it up. That should finish me off, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Boyle. What's the request of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the project with the following conditions, to incorporate the conditions issued by the Zoning Board of Appeals, for the applicant to obtain an agreement between, and I believe, is it Loft 27 that has between Loft 27 for, in the applicant for adequate snow storage, for the applicant to obtain 75 pass cards from the early parking garage, and for the following condition, that the approval be subject to certificate of occupancy contingent upon applicant upgrading traffic signal system at Gorham, Central Middlesex Street to include flashing yellow arrow and grid smart video detection system per the direction of the city electrician and city transportation engineer.
Landscape plan?
And I believe the BBA covered, but also the landscaping plan to be finalized with DPD staff.
A couple of, did we get comments from the city engineer? Did we get?
We finally, yeah, we got them this evening.
I didn't see it.
No,
so-
Lisa just gave, we got them earlier from, where'd I put it?
Dick, what I was taking is they were incorporated with the ZBA's
Okay,
approval
all right.
at that point, is that
We just
correct?
got from,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Judah tonight, yeah.
All right,
That covers
I
most
didn't
of
see
them.
those,
Okay.
but as long as you guys have seen them.
Anything else?
Just one other thing, the snow storage area that the chairman brought up. ZBA had a condition that the applicant shall design and implement a landscape plan with historic board and development services for administration approval. I think the wording is good, and incorporate a snow storage plan within that. Jerry, if we could.
The only thing, I believe what we came to an agreement with is that what they've been doing correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
What they have been doing to date is actually, because that's pervious surface as we speak. You've been clearing that
right.
and putting it on loft 27 space. The intent is for that to continue. Therefore, what we want is an agreement between loft 27 and this entity,
Oh, all right.
and which would
That's
address
fine.
the snow storage.
And I think what he did, Rich, is he said, one of the conditions was to go along with all the comments from ZBA,
ZBA.
and then he went and expanded a little further with the snow storage removal.
Yeah,
the
that's fine.
parking
I'm in
agreement.
agreement with all
Okay.
that, yeah.
Anything else? Okay.
No.
Any other board members have any further comments? We have a motion on the floor.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Any opposition? Okay, the site plan's approved. Good luck, and thank you, everyone.
We have a special permit there. We have to.
And I think the special permit's just for the ZBA, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, that's
Yeah,
right.
the
Yeah,
ZBA
yeah,
has
yeah,
the special
yeah,
permit,
yeah.
yeah. Because when you read it, it sounds like we have both.
Right, yeah, that's right, it did. All right, who's next?
Induced development.
Yeah. I think you
Right back.
the manager has stopped the delegation of all parking structures in that area.
Yeah, but yeah, it's at Rick Slagle came.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, moving along, the next matter is South Street. This is a public hearing for a site plan review and a special permit on 26 South Street. The Lowell Planning Board will hold a public hearing to hear all interested persons relative to an application by Peter D. Marlowe seeking a site plan approval as required under section 11.4 of the Lowell zoning ordinance, and a special permit for the construction of a new mixed-use building consisting of 4 residential units and commercial space. The subject property is located in the urban mixed-use and downtown mixed-use zoning district and requires special permit from the planning board for the use under Article 12(1)D of the Lowell zoning ordinance. May we have the applicant, please?
Mr. Chairman, just briefly, I just would, for the record, state that I will be recusing myself on
Okay,
this
thank you,
matter.
Mr. Fisher. Okay, go ahead, please, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, the board. My name is Peter Marlowe from 258 West Manchester Street. I represent Marlowe Building and Design. Along with me this evening is Mr. Jose Ribeiro, the owner of the property, and the owner of Romeo and Juliet's Restaurant, Mr. Luis Fernandez, and his son, who just walked out for a second, Mr. Luis Fernandez Jr. Together, they operate Romeo and Juliet's Restaurant, which is, if we all grew up in Lowell, it's the old trailer from years ago, right behind Elliot's Hot Dog. What our proposal tonight is, well, first off, I met Mr. Ribeiro when I was developing the corner of Bridge and Third Street, and he came up to me and he said he really liked what we were doing. Of course, we had worked with the city on that project, and he asked if we could develop something for him over on South Street. So we met with Planning and Development, got some ideas, met with the engineering department, because there's a passageway, a right-of-way that runs up the center of the 2 lots that he currently owns. So our proposal is to demo the existing structure and to construct a mixed-use 26 by 60-foot building, which contains 4,680 square feet total. It'll be a restaurant on the first floor, the existing restaurant, but it'll just give them a little bit more modern, a little more expansion, and we'll be able to get rid of all the storage containers that are in the back. I'll go through the paperwork. Is that all right to go through
Sure,
the
absolutely, sir, thank you.
paperwork? All right.
Yep.
And I have spares with me if anybody here would like a set. But I have we have a rendering, which I brought a larger copy, and a site plan. We have a rendering with the layout of the restaurant and the layout of the apartments, which will be 4 two-bedroom units. They're small units, they're not big units, okay? We also have the sign, which is in the back of me, that Planning and Development asked me to post at the site, and we did that for the past
I did see that on site, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, they are, it's the first time I've had to do
Yeah,
it, but
we appreciate it.
all the other towns do it, and
Yeah.
it's the
You know,
first time
when
I've
we
been
go out and look
asked.
at the site, we're like, yep, okay, we got the right spot.
I'm gonna save you, I'm not gonna read, but your package has the narrative in it.
Yes, we see that, thank you.
Talks about all the requirements we need to meet. Also in the package is just, I mean, most of you know the type of work that I do in the city. I grew up here, I grew up on Christian Hill, but I've posted different projects we've done in the city, and like landscaping, I know that's gonna come up tonight, but we always work with Planning and Development, put in the trees and the shrubs that they want. We have not developed a whole landscape plan yet, because just to get me to this spot right here is a very expensive procedure. So we haven't finalized that yet. I did a drawing for you with a little bit of crayons, just to represent the existing structures. The blue represents the building itself. I'll give you a chance to grab that. The green represents the cold storage bin that he has, because this is a very small footprint of the restaurant that he currently has. And the red represents 2 storage containers that are back there just some general supplies and things that he needs all the time. So as you look at that structure, the existing structures, the new structure is not going to really take up much more floor space than what's there. I also gave you an existing conditions, a drawing showing, I'm sure you all went over there, but just showing you what the existing conditions are and what they look like, so that we are going to be drastically improving the area over there. I had Mr. Pat Flaherty prepare a drainage report. Now, we did not get a letter back from Lisa up in the engineering department, but I did meet with Lisa prior, a couple weeks ago, just going over things that she may want. And one of the statements that she did make to us, because we showed the drainage with underground storage tanks, she said, but what if you don't, do your perk test and you don't get it? I said, then we'd go to impervious pavement, and that would alleviate the problem as far as drainage goes. So we have options if we don't meet a perk test on that land, but from what I've talked to from different engineers and different people, I'm not going to have a problem over in that area. Lastly, Mr. Flaherty prepared a locust and a site plan with showing the parking spaces and the 2 lots. One of the lots is in the parking is in the DMU zoning, and the building itself is going to sit in the UMU. And Lisa did mention I didn't show a handicap parking spot. We will address that. That's one of those things, we have to sit down with her and get her approval, and then we have to sit down with planning and development to go over landscaping and colors and things like that. And the building itself sits just outside the historic district. Let's see if I have anything else. We have met, there was one comment, but we have met the parking regulations under the current zoning because we're so close to the early parking garage. And I also met with Walter Garside from the Elliott. We sat down, I gave him a package, went over everything, he had no problem with it. He just as soon get it cleaned up because he says a lot of drug issues back there and at night and things like that. So he's all for it, he had no problem at all. I also dropped a business card off a while back to the gentleman across the way that owns the auto body and auto repair shop, but I never received any calls. But I did drop a card off, and I talked to a couple of his men. And Mr. Fernandez, the owner of Romeo and Juliet's, currently has 4 employees that work the restaurant. And a lot of walk-in traffic from the registry, and people that are living in the area come in. A lot of Brazilian people come over and pick up to-go orders. He makes great cakes, great chicken on a stick. I have to say that I love it. And the other thing we did was we met with Eric Siegel, and I think you got the letter. I got it late tonight, that they thought there was a parking issue, but we've done the deed searches. We've worked with a law firm in Lowell, and the parking, the Board of Appeals had issued a building permit based on parking that was granted under a deed, but the deed had been granted after Mr. Ribeiro's deed had been granted, so it was an issue, and he looked it over and he agreed with us. That's all I have to say.
I just have one quick question. Looking at the site now,
Yep.
your property doesn't go all the way to the corner, does it? You know what I mean? If you're looking right at the restaurant.
You look at the restaurant, the building's going to be just in the same,
Over to the left is like some vacant land.
yes, that's
No.
owned by somebody else.
Okay, that was
Yeah.
my question.
The fenced-in area is owned by somebody else.
That's what I didn't know if you were,
Yeah, Mr. Ribeiro owns
Okay.
where the building is. He owns the parking to the left, but
Okay.
in the center of that is a passageway.
yeah. See, I didn't know if you were touching any of that or not.
And the passageway
Parking,
has, the people that have access to that passageway is Elliott's, which I don't understand because it actually doesn't border his land, and the church, which used to be the Visiting Nurse Association years ago.
When you say have access, do you just mean abuts has frontage on?
Yeah, it's just a passageway, and we've gone through it with, nobody owns it. It's
Is it a public right-of-way?
just, they call it, it's listed as a passage.
Okay. So it was never accepted by the city? Okay. So it's sort of one of those in-between statuses. The city couldn't abandon it if we wanted to, right? I mean, if it's not a public street, we can't abandon it.
Well, as far as I know, someone would have to request to the city council that the city abandon it, and as far as I know, that's never been done. So it is considered a paper street.
Okay, a
So it's
paper street meaning that it is laid out on a document somewhere as being a public right-of-way, it was just never built.
Right, just never built, and all the abutters have equal access rights to the street. So it has to be kept open so that all abutters have access and can access their property using that paper street.
Okay, now, when you say they have that right, does that mean, that sometimes you have in deeds that you have an access easement over a piece of property. Other times you just you know, you're abutting what's a public way, so you have the right to pass and repass over the public way. Is this, I mean, does this right to use this exist on, is it an easement? Is it on somebody's deed? Or are you just saying that they abut it so that they have the right to access it?
In general, that is the situation with paper streets. They're not public way. They're owned by the abutters up to the center line of the street, and they have to be kept open so that every abutter to that paper street can access it.
Okay,
It can't be, a structure can't be built on it. It can't be blocked.
okay. Okay, but that, this plan seems to conform to that. Should
Yes,
those
yes.
abutters decide they want to start accessing through there, they could just go up
Yep.
and down the drive aisle.
Yeah, the only other person that might access it is the church, really, because if they were moving furniture in or doing something, it would be a lot easier for them to do it that way rather than on Middlesex Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
And we're not touching that. We are going to repave it, but we're not going to block it in any way, and that's why we designed the building the way we did. We worked on this. We thought we'd build on two sides and do a bridge over with access, and it turned out by turning the building, it just worked out to be a better design.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anything else you want to add before I turn it over to the public?
Not at all.
Okay, thank you very much. Yep, I'm going to get there, 1 second, okay? Does anybody here want to speak in favor of the project? In favor? In favor? In favor? Anybody want to speak in opposition? Just come to the microphone, give us your name and address for the record, please. Just tell us your name and address, please. Thank you,
Yes, good
sir.
afternoon, gentlemen. My name is Calvin Dong. I'm reside at 48 Heritage Road in Barica, and I'm the owner of the body shop 17 South Street and 160 Middlesex Street. And we have a little bit issue on the parking lot that this gentleman was addressed. Because when I purchased the building, the land, we have very clearly on the deed here that we have the right to use and pass lot 2. And if you could look on page, the first page is a deed, and the second page is the lot plan. And the fourth page is the document saying that I have the right to use that and park the car on that lot 2. And also, on page 8, there's an easement documentation that I have attached to that package. I have highlight yellow on page 8.
They're not numbered, so I'm trying to figure out what page you
Sorry.
mean.
I didn't put a number, I just,
Yeah, so I'm not, you mean the letter from Attorney Harvey? Is that what you're referring to? That's number page 8 in my packet.
no, do you see
The
addendum
quick claim
A?
deed is page 1. One.
I think you're looking
And
at the
two.
book page number here. There's someone,
Page look like this, gentlemen.
Okay, no, okay, it's the page
I think
before.
it's the third,
All right,
fourth page in, third page in, fourth page. Book, it says book 2054,
okay, I got you here, okay.
top of the page. Then there is a highlighted area. it's hard to read, but the grantee has hereby conveys to the said grantee the right to pass over, use, or park on the land designated as lot, whatever the lot number is, 7, on said plan. This was signed in 1973.
Excuse me.
Okay, I believe, Judy, is this the letter we got from legal staff today then? That's addressing this issue that, is that the one you gave us from Eric?
Yes, so that is from Eric Slagle, who is the Director of Development Services. And basically what he is saying is that the owner who granted the right to park in the deed to 160 Middlesex Street did not have that right to grant the parking. The seller did not own 16 South Street at the time.
So if he didn't have, if he doesn't own it, he can't convey it, right?
Right.
So I guess Director of Division of Family and Development looked over that information, tells us that the person who gave you that indicates that they didn't own 16 South Street at the time, so therefore they couldn't give you permission to use it.
But if you look at the deeds and the, like the page this page over here,
Yeah,
it said on the bottom here where I had highlight black here,
yeah,
and it's saying that lot 1 has
Yeah.
the right to park.
okay.
But that was like back years ago. And this is the
And
page.
yeah, I understand that.
Before I purchased this, I have Jim Flood, attorney Jim Flood, go over this, and he said that is I have the right to park and use or pass this lot too. We make very clearly, and he did, do a research with the deed, registry of deed in Lowell. And I believe that lot 2 has an easement. This is the page right here I have highlighted too.
So what it comes down to is, I understand what they're saying here.
Yes.
So when a lawyer has to do a title search, they have to go back to see who granted the property to Mr. McNulty, and they have to go back a certain number of years to see if the rightful owner had the right to transfer that over. As a lawyer, I can write in, and I'm not sure if it's right or wrong, don't get me wrong here, okay, that says you have that, but if it wasn't granted to you in the previous deed, what we call a title search, then by adding that in, says I have the right to do so, doesn't mean you do. And
How
I'm not
about
saying
the-
that that's right or wrong.
How about the deed over here, sir?
Yeah, and then, and that deed also has to go back to what rights and transferability they get from the previous owner.
So at this point, what do I have to do to clear this out?
I don't know, I see a bunch of lawyers' names here in our packets. You mentioned Attorney Flood. I do see Attorney Burke. I do see Attorney, who's the other lawyer?
The letter that I received, 2 letters I received
Yeah,
from,
and I see you have 2 different lawyer letters in here.
2 of them are from 16 and 26 South Street attorney, and one of
Yeah,
them
I'm
are
trying to
from
figure out
my,
which attorney, okay. One you have William Harvey, and the other one is Attorney Burke, right?
the attorney Burke is a represent for 16 and 26.
Yep. Yeah. Mr. Burke is the opinion that the property, okay. He says one thing, yep. Yeah, okay, so he said he's been retained by, Jose and Maria Barberio indicating the property of South Street. And he says one thing, and then you have Attorney Harvey that's been retained by yourself, right?
Right.
Okay. He says that they have the use, and Attorney Burke says you don't. Okay. So March 18th. Yep, when he's done, yep. Anything else? Let me just take it, once he's done, we'll get back to him, okay? No problem, sir. Okay. Anything else you want to say? Okay.
Nope.
All right. Thank
So,
you.
but so I have to get my attorney to do a title search?
Yeah, which attorney are you working with? Mr. Burke or Mr. Harvey?
The attorney that worked on this plan was Jim Flood.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute, but I think it, usually if it comes to a question of that, for us, more times than not, what we would do would be refer to our law department to have them give us a legal opinion. I know Mr. Slagle from Director of Plan and Development said he thinks it's all set.
Actually,
He
I'm not sure whether he see this documentation before he wrote that letter.
Yeah, I don't know either, so
That's what he
why
put down. He did not see any information about 160 Middlesex have the right to park. He did not see that.
Okay,
But I did give to Judy
okay,
office of
Right.
10 days ago.
okay.
So he probably did not see that documentation.
So a lot of times, what we would do is, if it's a legal matter, and we have 2 different opinions by 2 different lawyers,
Yep.
a lot of times we'll refer to our law department and have those lawyers speak with them, and then give them the documentation, and then have them tell us which they feel is right or wrong, you know? I know Mr. Slagle used to work in our law department, but he's not wearing that hat now, so that's why we refer to the law department, because they're the ones, when it comes to a legal question, they have to sign off on it. Like even myself, being attorney on the board, I can't give legal advice for the city, we have to get it from the law department. And then obviously, so we will address that, but we understand what your concerns are, because you feel that you have a right to be on their property.
Yes.
Because of all the documentation you have. Correct. So, would you say, you're in the body shop? So
Yes.
where were you located, across the street?
Across the street, sir.
Okay, directly across, is it?
Yes.
Okay, I think I know what you mean, yeah.
17 South Street.
Oh, 17, okay.
Yeah, 17 South Street and 5 Spring and 180 Middlesex.
Okay.
We combined to one building.
Oh,
That was
okay.
5 years ago.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Marlowe, I'll let you just address that part of it before I turn over to the board matters, to see if anything you want to say to help. us clarify.
Before I get into this, I personally met with Attorney Burke. And if you notice, there's one final letter that went out that stated that they continue to park there, and if they do, they are now going to get towed. And there's been signs put up on the fence that if anyone parks there that's not with the restaurant, and we never heard back from that Attorney Harvey. So Attorney Burke went over everything with me, and he said, it's cut and dry. He said the deed was issued far long before the deed was issued to this gentleman. So, and then because I got a call from Eric Slagle on it too, I was down within the hour with all the paperwork, and I said, here it is, and I gave copies so that you people would see that.
Okay.
It's just a matter of a deed search.
Yeah,
and
I understand that, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a
Thank
title
you.
search, yep. If the lawyers do a closing on it, they're responsible to do it, responsible for the title insurance, and, yeah. I've done them myself, yep. Okay. Anybody else here this evening want to speak in regards to this project? No? Okay, before I turn over to staff, Nick, anything you want to say on this? I know you had a comment on this as well, or is it just basically the same comments for the general area, or anything specific you'd like to add?
Yeah, no, it's a great project, it's a great addition. Like I said, this is the type of induced growth that you're gonna get in that area. Looks great. I don't have any concerns about traffic, because the restaurant's already there, and 4 units doesn't add a lot of traffic, so no traffic issues. Just, again, the parking, again, we're, again, in the same area, more parking added. Where's everybody gonna park? Obviously, there's issues with on-street parking there, so just something to think about.
Okay, I appreciate it. Judy, any comments that you want to add on before I turn over to the rest of the staff, or just basically what's been given to us, or?
No, I think that the comments are pretty well summarized in the document that you received from Christine.
Excuse me.
As Peter said, he did meet with Lisa at some point. We've been talking to her also. She did not give us a final set of documentation, a review for this meeting, unfortunately. But I do agree. I think that's probably her major concern, is that if he doesn't have the right soils in order to put that underground drainage system, it's going to have to be solved another way. The stormwater management would have to be pervious pavement. So it really hinges on having good soils. So he'll have to do those soil tests, and then Lisa will have to give her final review of the entire project.
Thank you. Okay, at this point in time, any of the board members have any comments, or? Mr. Lockhart, can I start with you?
Well, I like the rendition. I think you got a really nice addition to the area. There's obviously a few legal issues here with parking area, and city engineer needs to, evaluate it. So I'm in favor of the project. I'd like to see it go forward and
Okay, thank you.
at a future date.
Next, any questions, comments?
Again, I also think it would be a nice addition to the area, as far as some of the comments from staff, in terms of the actual materials and facade and so forth. If you were to work with staff, to come to an agreement on that. According to the code, there does appear to be an issue with the number of parking spaces, and that's something we're going to have to consider here as to what a reasonable position would be. Looking at this now, where the storage container currently is that possibly available for parking once that storage container is no longer
Yes,
there?
there is parking and delivery space in the back. And with the board, I haven't addressed rubbish removal, recycling, but typically at this type of a project, the restaurant would have its own fenced-in dumpster. And then the apartments, we would do curbsides with the carting. And what I found from my experience, because we manage our own properties, is I would give each apartment one curbside container, so there'd be 4, but then they would split. The recycling bins are so big in the city of Lowell that we'd use 2 recycling bins to service, 4 units. And that's worked out great for us, so.
And they come every other week to recycling compared to
Right,
the
but
weekly.
it still seems to work out fine for us.
Okay.
All right, so then you would have a dumpster for
The restaurant.
restaurant.
Yep.
And would that allow you any more parking space available behind the building?
We have,
where the
I
storage
believe on the plan, he's got 2 behind the building now.
Oh, okay. I was looking at the existing structure piece.
Yeah, he's got 2 behind the building, and the dumpster itself might be one of those rollout types, for the restaurant.
Yeah, my only concern would be, the number of parking spaces, and if there was any way to,
We show 8 right now.
other than that, I do think it would be a nice project for the area, as long as we can all agree that it's not going to create any additional parking issues in the area.
Anything else, Dick? No? Okay. Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, on this issue of parking, part of what's going on here is the split zoning of the lot. You have a higher parking requirement under the zoning because part of your property is UMU instead of DMU.
Yeah.
Did you consider going for a rezone?
I did, but we were hoping we didn't have to do that. I thought since it's only such a small area, we possibly could, and I've done that before, but I didn't really think it would be that necessary after speaking with engineering and planning and development.
Okay. There's some language here about, you had mentioned, because of your proximity towards the garage, that would meet your, you could meet your zoning parking requirement that way?
Yes. I believe it cuts, I don't want to be correct, state wrong, but I believe it cuts it in half because we're within 1,500 feet of the garage space.
Okay.
Right.
And that would bring you down to what as a requirement?
I think the normal requirement would probably be somewhere around 16. I think somebody gave us a report on that. Oh, I think it was this gentleman. Yeah, so maybe he could answer that.
Okay. But anyways, my question about the garage was, were you proposing any sort of formal agreements or,
We didn't at this point, but the owner is open to it, but we didn't know, since we met the requirements, we didn't know if it was necessary.
and you're saying you meet the requirements, since you met the requirements?
Based on the project size and how many units it is, we need the 8 parking spaces, and we show 8 parking spaces.
Okay, you're telling me 8. I've got something in front of me that says that it requires 23. Where's the 23 number come from, if I can ask staff?
Yes, sir. The 4 apartment units require 2 spaces each because the building is actually in the,
UMU.
yeah. So the building itself is in the zoning district. That's the zoning district I use. So the 4 units require 2 spaces each, and then the restaurant space requires 15.
Okay.
And since they overlap on weekends, 6 p.m. to 12 a.m., you need the maximum 23, according to the chart we use in the zoning book.
Okay.
So that's where the 23 comes from.
Okay, and now, is it correct that we should cut that 23 in half because of the proximity to the parking garage? Judy?
Yet the provision in the zoning requires a reduction, 50%, I believe, for residential uses. So he comes under actually 2 provisions in the zoning, one for a reduction for residential and one for use, for the restaurant use. He also, he meets the requirements for a reduction because of the location and the proximity to the city garage.
And now, okay, for the restaurant use, does that also cut it in half?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
so we're at 11 and a half, rounds up to 12. If he'd gone in for, if the UMU part, if he had gone in for his rezoning down to DMU, that would cut it down, the residential the parking requirement for the residential would go from 8 to 4, and then would that then be cut in half again to 2? Is that, yes, it's the statutory zoning cut in half if you're in a garage, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. You know, that's the statutory, I'm sorry, did you have more to add? Okay. That's the statutory requirement that we're talking about. I like to be guided more by the ground and what it needs than the statutory requirement. But in this case, I think that the statutory requirement is the appropriate one, and what's more, if the property were rezoned to DMU and reducing that amount of parking demand, I think that that would be a reasonable and appropriate thing to do based on the site conditions and the neighborhood, and not just a loophole he could get through. You know, to put it more simply, I think that the basic principle that all the statutory requirements of parking isn't necessary here because of the type of neighborhood and their proximity to the garage, I think that is a true and valid thing. It makes me worry about, you know, the actual, not statutory, but actual parking demand less. What I worry about more are these comments from staff. The board may want to consider the applicant to submit building plans which include a South Street entrance. Currently, the plans show entrance exit from the parking area.
I didn't understand that one.
Okay, where's the door? Where's the entrance door to this building?
Oh, it's on the side, the passageway.
Is it on the side facing the passageway? Okay.
The entrances are on one here
Yep.
and one here.
And which one, okay, is one of those for the retail and one of those for the residential?
Both, these two are for the restaurant, and then there's one further down to access the center of the building to get up into the apartments.
Okay.
Oh, I follow where that statement was going, yeah. In other words, right now, the existing building, the trailer itself, has, the entrances are in the exact same spot on the front of the building, and then there's another one on the other side. But it's not a good flow. So we put both entrances on the passageway side of the building.
Okay.
We didn't want to have, we have to have handicapped access, and we've got a little bit of a grade area there we have to deal with. So it'd be difficult to put it, the building sits right on the street, it'd be difficult to put the door right there and to be able to ramp up into that.
Didn't you just say you were going to have 2 doors into the restaurant?
Yeah, you have to have 2 means of egress, yeah.
Okay, so that the handicapped access could be from, if you were to move one of those doors out to South Street, you'd still have one that's coming off the passageway, which could be the handicapped access.
Yeah, I think
wouldn't
if you
necessarily
just
have-
look at the front of the building, and it's similar.
The
I just
existing
think,
building or your drawing?
yeah, I just think the flow of the glass, you know, I can picture people sitting there on each window on a small table sitting there, and people walking by, and then you can sit there and see people. It's just a little bit more visual. And the door is basically right at the corner of the building, but it still gives you a nice spot to put some tables across the face.
Yeah. The principle of having the access off of the frontage, okay, for pedestrian usage is a good and legitimate one. Where you're showing an entrance, it's right around the corner. It's
Yes.
still going to be highly visible. If you weren't going to go directly off South Street, I'd want something awning signage, you know, through design to make that door particularly visible.
Well, on these buildings, the same as on the Bridge Street building, I worked originally before, I'm drawing a blank. I used to work with Aaron before Judith came along. And he sent me sketches of what they want for signage on the face. So we've started to develop a large frieze board underneath the overhang, and I run a crown around it with a copper roof.
Yep.
And so that gives you all that space for signage in there.
Okay.
And all I did on the front of the building was try to balance it all out so it was uniform.
Yep. Okay.
I mean, aesthetics-wise, I have no problem putting the door on the front. I just think the building is much more attractive. It's balanced.
Okay. All right, like I said, I think that going off the side as opposed to going off the frontage is kind of second best, but I think it's something that if there's a reason to do it, it could be made to work, but it's gonna require a little attention in order to make sure that it does work. I don't think it's insurmountable, but it is something that needs to be thought about, how you're gonna dress that up to make sure somebody coming down South Street from Appleton, walking towards the building, will not have to search, will know where the door is, will not have to search for the door. You know, that's the principle here. It needs to be very easily read by the person on the street.
Yep.
And I think it can be, we need to make sure it's being done. A bigger concern I have, though, is that you've designed a nice building here, but it doesn't look like anything else anywhere near it. I went through this district. I didn't find a single hipped roof anywhere in the district. I found gable ends on the buildings that weren't, I saw a lot of brick, but, you know, that looked like brick commercial buildings.
Actually,
The buildings that weren't brick commercial buildings, the ones that had like residential character, there was a gable end facing the street. I could not find exceptions to what I just said. This looks like, you designed something that looks like Lowell very well. Just the wrong part of Lowell. This would fit like a glove on Bridge Street. This is not, you know, this is not one of our traditional neighborhoods with the NB zoning. This is one of our urban neighborhoods. We have urban, traditional, and suburban. We're very proud of the fact that our zoning isn't just numbers-based and doesn't have names like B3. It actually describes what it is and embodies certain design principles about these three different types of districts that we have in our city. And this is very much an urban district. And what I'm looking at is very much a traditional neighborhood design.
this building, I spend a lot of time. You know, I've been through mill number 5. I've walked the mills. I grew up here in the city. I spend a lot of time in Newburyport, Portsmouth. This is the type of building, I tried to design it specifically with the hip roof, okay? Because with a low pitch, it's only a 4 pitch. I could have gone with a flat roof with some parapet walls, which was a thought, or put a parapet, slope it towards, and put a gutter on it. But I also have to take care of the water runoff on the property. But the reason I did the hip roof was this is the type of building that would have been built to house mill workers. So I was trying to establish that type of a square, believe it, low-pitch hip roof that maybe the mill girls would have lived in, and then across the street, gone to work every morning. And the front of the facade of the building is very similar to what, you know, you would have gotten at the Woolworths building in downtown Lowell with the raised panels underneath, along with the glass above the doors and things like that. Unfortunately, today, we can't do the height that people did years ago because you can't meet the zoning today, or the codes. You can't meet the building codes today with the heights in these smaller lots, because you're no longer allowed to use the 8 1/4 rise per foot for a stair, for instance. You have to use 7 3/4, so you're fighting it all the time on heights and things like that. But that's what I was trying to achieve here, was something that maybe the mill girls would have shared apartments and then gone to work across the street every day.
It doesn't look, we have examples in the district of residential buildings that people lived in at the time of, that these mills were active. And in this district, this isn't what they looked like.
I'm not opposed to a gable if you want to make that as part of the planning review, because I have to sit down with, I think there's 6 people, when it comes to the building permit, I have to sit down for a plan review process anyways. I have no issue in it. I'm just telling you why I designed it specifically with a low-pitch hip roof.
I see,
Yep.
okay.
I haven't built a hip roof in years, but I thought in this area it would work.
A hipped roof is a nice, graceful
Yeah.
solution in a lot of circumstances, and that's, there's certainly a thought process here. This is definitely a thoughtfully designed building, there's
Yeah.
no question about that.
The other thing that I can do is I can get a gutter to wrap the whole building, bring the downspouts in, and then bring them across into the underground storage. And that's always, water runoff is a big concern in the engineering department.
It certainly is. In terms of the materials, the first story, what you're proposing here looks like just what's going on in the district. It's interesting combination of, because there is some sleek modern style that's being built there, and this would fit in with it nicely.
The bottom will be similar to what I did on Bridge Street. Of course, it's made all out of AZAC today.
Yep.
But it'll be flat panels with moldings and all wood frame windows.
But what you got for the siding here,
Up above,
yeah,
it is a vinyl siding, but it's a wide. It's called a double 6, and it's got a styrofoam built behind it, so it doesn't cup. It's put out by All Side. It's what I used on the Bridge Street project and on the 3rd Street project. Very wide, so it doesn't look like that little vinyl siding.
yes, yes. I don't, my concern here is not that you're trying to do this cheap,
No.
okay? This would be a quality, nice building if it was to be constructed on Bridge Street, and it would fit in with what's around it. I would think that a brick treatment would fit in with the neighborhood better than, it kind of looks like a colonial house put on top of a storefront. And there's nothing colonial around it. I agreed strongly with commentary number 2 on our memo. The board, I trust you got this, the November 20th memo from Christine McCall. The board may consider asking the applicant to submit design plans that are consistent with the general character of the surrounding neighborhood. This area is more commercial, and the current design plans include materials such as vinyl siding and shutters that are consistent with a residential neighborhood. The surrounding buildings are constructed with brick. That was my thought when I went out there and looked around, and it was confirmed to me when I read this. I think we need a different visual aspect on this. I wondered, did the rest of the board feel the same way upon seeing the staff's commentary, or or am I out alone?
Excuse me.
I'll ask the other board members if anybody wants to comment. Anybody have any comments on what Joe's proposing for the exterior of the building? Bob, I'll start with you if you don't mind.
I tend to lean with Joe. I think that the materials should be more reflective of the neighborhood, and most of that area is brick.
I would concur with that.
Dick, anything you want to say?
No, I would be in agreement, having it look more in keeping with the neighborhood.
Well, sure.
I mean, I think it's a nice looking building.
Oh, yeah, it is.
You know, I think if you compare it to the pictures that I showed you of other projects we've done, you know, it would be to be honest with you, it would be cost prohibitive to brick that whole building.
Yeah.
To do real brick.
Yes,
To
yes.
do a real brick treatment
Yeah.
on the building, yes, it would.
Yeah.
I would just like to point out that in all of my commentary, I didn't say a bad word about vinyl. They're doing some pretty amazing things with materials these days. There's all kinds of different facade treatments that produce different types of impacts without going to actual brick and mortar.
And again, I'm open to it.
Especially when there's upper stories, so it's not like it'll be where somebody can look real close.
Yep.
Yeah. Another thing is that I certainly don't want us to design a facade here tonight. For one thing, it's needed a place. For another, while I understand design principles, I have virtually no design skills. So I think that what I would like to see is the applicant to leave with an understanding of the board's concerns and come back with a design. That's what I'd like. In terms of the parking, the access, the basic fundamental idea of whether replacing the small restaurant with a larger retail space, going up a couple stories with residential above it, I'm on board with all of that. This design issue is really my only area of concern. Otherwise, I am very pleased to see this project coming in. I think it represents some of that induced development that we want so much in this district. I don't think that this project would be happening if the mills hadn't been rehabbed and all of the other things had gone in. And I hope that the owner and the business owner have gotten a boost out of all of that development around. I hope that all of that other redevelopment is the impetus and has allowed your proposed redevelopment to happen, because this is just what we wanted. And I'm very pleased to see you come in with this tonight. I fear my comments may have come across as more negative about the project as a whole than I intended. I like this project. I think that it could be excellent.
I would have no objections to, and I'll present something to the board, of putting a gable. I'd want to steepen the pitch of the roof.
Okay.
But put a gable on the front with a complete Boston hip return across the front. And I could address it with a large, either fake window or a vent, round vent that sits in the gable. And then we could do that from that Boston hip down to where the commercial starts. We could do that in an imitation type brick. There are some good projects and there are some good products out there, but I'm always careful. I like something to look really good.
Yes.
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 One of my buildings is the one on 480 Bridge Street, and it's an all brick building.
Yeah.
Yeah, corner of, yes.
Yep.
And I mean, that's more in brick, that when we built that, we did it with more in brick. And I met with the historic board, and that's what we brought in to do that.
Right.
I couldn't do that building today. It's just not cost prohibitive, you know.
Yep. There are also buildings that are in the neighborhood that don't have the gable end facing the street. There are some that have this slopes side of the roof facing the street, usually with a couple of dormers in them. I'm not sitting here saying, with a list, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. I want you to apply your skills. I'm not here demanding, I'm not even saying I need a gable end facing the street. There are lots of options here. All I'm saying is this doesn't quite fit, and I'd like something that fits more.
I'm
I
willing to
trust
work with
that you
planning
can-
and development.
I think you
Yeah.
can
Yep.
meet that.
Design.
And I don't think it needs to be cost prohibitive. As I said, you didn't arrive at this design by going cheap, and I don't think that
No.
it needs to be.
No.
I don't think it requires a great deal more. It just requires different.
I would like to keep the hip on the back end of the building, though, and the reason is to connect
Yep.
the stormwater runoff So on the backside, you wouldn't see it anyways.
Yep. Absolutely. I'm really looking to back up I'm really agreeing with the DPD here, and if you could convince them, then you've convinced me.
I'm willing to work with them.
Excellent.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty good team when they get together. They like their hardboard siding, though.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, the hardy plank. My roofer was just complaining about that. It chips. The low stuff
It
chips.
does. It's not, they'll have problems with it later on.
Oh, well. All right, that's what I had, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mallett?
The only concern I have is, I'm confused about the parking. Is there enough parking? Of course, during the day, there'll be 8 parking spaces for the restaurant off-street, so, maybe the mixed use makes the thing palatable. But I'm confused about the zone requirements and cutting it in half and then that whole formula basis. That's all. I like the project.
Anything you want to add, Mitch?
I have no
Okay.
additional
No.
questions, no.
I just had one question, pertains to what the fire department indicated. They said the only concern is the total square footage of the building. Anything over 7,500 square feet will require
Oh,
a
yeah,
type
yeah, yeah.
13 system,
Yes,
and if it's less, it's a 13R.
correct. A 13 requires, one or the other requires its own water line to be brought in the building, whereas the other one, you can bring a domestic line in, and you can tee off and use it for the sprinklers and the domestic water in the building. So you can sort of use one line rather than putting in 2.
So which would you be using?
This will be under 7,500 square feet, yep. Yeah, I gave you the numbers,
For the 75, you do the what, 13R it says, and they'll be satisfied, okay.
yeah. Actually, when I did the Bridge Street building where the new police precinct is, that building used to be 4 stories, and that had a lot of square footage there. And they had already brought in, before it burnt down, they had already brought a 6-inch line in. So we utilized that line even though we didn't meet the 7,500.
Because it was there, might as well,
It was there, yeah.
easier to use that instead
Right.
of grade something else, you know?
And the building we're proposing is just under 5,000 square feet.
Okay.
I did have one thing.
I'm sorry, Rich? Go ahead.
I did have one thing. The Solid Waste and Recycling Group noted that there was no dumpster or on the pad or any.
We will probably, for
Any
the restaurant,
provision-
have a
any provision for
rollout dumpster.
All right, so you'll show that on a site plan?
I will, when we do the final plan with engineering.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, all right, that's all. All I have.
Any board members have any follow-up comments, or?
Just one.
Sure, go ahead.
Item number 3 on this memorandum. The board may want to consider requiring the applicant to work with Development Services staff to produce a final landscape plan. We don't even have an initial landscape plan. We don't, we're generally okay with, we get a general sense of the landscaping and then, pick out the species and exact locations and everything with DPD. But we, so far, don't even have a vague sense of what of what you're gonna be looking to do. Is there gonna be fencing? Is there gonna be plantings of any kind? Is there any opportunity for street trees?
I did discuss it with Lisa and Peter Maloney, and we talked about installing one catch basin and then putting in some planting areas that would hold the water runoff on the property. They like to hold 1 inch in a big rainstorm. They like the property to hold 1 inch of rain. So we're willing to work with that. And we'll come up with usually I work with planning and development on the landscape design.
Yeah,
Yeah. And we'll have it in the final plan.
okay, excellent.
I mean, there isn't a lot you can do, but it'll be some smaller trees and shrubs.
Okay. Did fencing come up at all?
What's that?
Did fencing come?
We have it actually drawn in on the plan.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right, well, excellent, look forward to see that get to at least some kind of reviewable level. Again, that's another, landscape plans is another thing we don't typically finalize all the way at the meeting. But, okay, good.
Any further comments? If not, so we need two matters in this. One's the site plan review, they need the special permit as well, correct? Special permit because of the two different zones, I take it?
I believe special permit was for use, residential,
Because of
the number of units.
Oh, yeah, number of
Okay,
units.
so we need two votes, one for the special permit and one for the site plan, okay.
Hold on, votes? Where,
I said we need two different votes, one for site plan and one for special permit. We're requesting a site plan and a special permit, so we have to vote on both.
I thought this project was gonna come back.
Well, we have to vote one way or another when it comes back on.
Yes, we do, but
Okay.
we don't need to take action on the site plan and special permit tonight. We could, I had thought that the way, the direction this was going in was that this would be continued to another meeting so that we could get,
I didn't know, I mean, no one's made a motion to that effect yet.
Yeah, well, maybe the site plan, I think we can vote on the,
So, I don't know, I mean, no one's made a motion, so I'm just
Yeah,
saying,
all right.
what I stated was we need
oh, okay,
two votes one way or another, and even if we continue, we still need two votes.
okay.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the site plan be continued so that the applicant can work on the details of it and present it to us at a future meeting.
We'll
Is that
second that motion.
descriptive enough?
Could I make one amendment on that, if I could?
Yeah,
Could we request a legal determination from the law department? We come back in regards
yeah,
to the
that too.
claims on the property rights?
right.
And that way, I know we received all of the information on the deed from the abutter. I know we received a lot of information from Mr. Marlowe as well. I know we did receive a determination from Eric Slagle, but if we could forward all that information to the legal department to get a clear understanding from what their understanding is. So I think, make sure that Mr. Marlowe has the right to do what he has to do on that property. So,
Right.
and then that way, if we get it from the law department, it gives us direction which way to go. So do you mind putting that as a condition of
No,
the
no,
continuance? Okay.
absolutely not. Now, what about the city engineer? She has to
Basically,
review everything, right?
right,
that-
what it came down to is they're looking for comments to satisfy the city engineer with the stormwater.
Right,
They wanted to work with planning staff with the landscaping. They wanted to add the handicap spot. They were gonna work with the planning staff for design of the exterior of the building, mostly the second story. The second stories, I should say.
Right.
And the other question was the legal department.
right.
Those are
That
the
should
concerns I
cover
have
it,
that were
yeah.
raised by most parties.
That should cover it.
Anything further? I'm not sure if we want to continue to get anything particularly, or we could act accordingly with those conditions, or get it back for certain, I'm not sure exactly what we're looking for, but we can do it either way, whatever the wish of the board is. I'm sorry. So, if we continue it, the only thing, if there's anything particular that you want him to get on the site plan as indicated, but, because, those are the only concerns I think that we raised, was the handicap, landscaping, city engineer, work with.
Dumpster, yeah, there's not
Yeah.
that much.
No,
We could
the
make it-
dumpster, he indicated he worked with wastewater, they're gonna have a dumpster on site for the commercial,
Right.
and the residential is gonna be the rollout.
Or we can take action tonight, I don't know.
Yeah, if you guys want to vote tonight instead of motion to continue, that's appropriate too, whichever. I know you did make a motion to continue, so, it's up to yourself.
I just wanted to give you the opportunity to get a finalized plan here, but maybe we can do it without it.
It's up to yourself, Richard, sure, if you,
Yeah.
okay. So do you
all right.
want to withdraw the motion to continue?
I'll withdraw the motion to continue and make a motion to approve the site plan with those
Joe, is that
conditions.
okay with you to withdraw your second on the motion to continue?
I think it needs to be continued. I think this needs to come back. We don't even have an initial landscape plan. The visual design of the building is going to change dramatically from what's been presented tonight. I don't think we're far enough along for just work with DPD staff at this point on the facade design or the landscape.
Okay.
I think we should continue.
Okay, so his motion is withdrawn to continue it, so let me start, so therefore,
Okay. I will,
Approval with conditions.
I move to continue the public hearings on the site plan and the special permit until, well, I guess, the first meeting in January?
Fourth.
so particularly, what are you asking that the applicant bring back at that date?
A plan for the design of the exterior of the building, a landscaping / site plan showing parking, dumpster, drainage.
I won't be able to do perk tests this right away.
Okay, where does that leave us then? If we've got a plan here for an underground infiltration system, and then later you do a perk test and determine that, heaven forbid, you wouldn't be able to use that.
That's what I discussed at the beginning. Lisa recommended that if the perk tests fail, that we would have to go to impervious pavement.
So I think what you requested was a conditional approval from the city engineer on the stormwater.
Right, I wanted to go over with her what she's looking for, and we did. We sat down with Peter Maloney and Lisa, and we went over everything that they would want. I don't know why we didn't get a report, but we did
Yeah.
talk about it.
So you'd be amenable to what the recommendation for the city engineer would be, obviously.
Absolutely, yeah.
The difference between pervious pavement and pervious pavement, having a buried infiltration chamber versus not having a buried infiltration chamber, these strike me as large issues that we shouldn't just make a condition to work with DPD on. This strikes me as a larger matter. We need to get it further down the process.
I think the request was to have the approval by the city engineer,
Yes,
not work with DPD staff on that one for the stormwater.
right.
I think the only two that the request to work with DPD was the landscaping plan and the design plan, because you indicated you were comfortable with what staff came up with.
What was that last part?
Because you indicated that usually you're very comfortable for what design permit that staff comes up with. You said if they satisfy usually staff, then they usually satisfy you.
Yeah, I am usually satisfied with that when, but yes, I am usually satisfied with that. Usually we have an exterior plan which shows us generally what the building is going to look like, and there are a few changes to be made. This is, the changes that are going on here are liable to be dramatically different. Usually, on the landscape plan, we usually have some kind of we usually have a landscape plan presented. Maybe we have some commentary on that, and there's an agreement to work with DPD to change it in accordance with our comments. We don't even have that, any kind of an initial landscape plan. These just seems bigger than the stuff we usually, that needs to get worked out when we come up with these conditions for, work with DPD, get approved by the city engineer for final approval. We're not asking for we wouldn't be asking them to give some final approval. I mean, that would be the approval. I mean, if we were to take an act tonight, we would be approving a building without knowing what it's gonna look like.
But I could submit 3 different facades, working with planning and development, and, we could sit down and go over that. I have no problem with that. I'm gonna, before I start drawing, I'm gonna meet with them and say, give me some idea of what you're looking for. Because I don't want to just keep drawing and coming up with things that they're not happy with. I'm gonna sit down with them, much like I did on my other projects.
Mr. Marlowe, but if this were to be continued to January 4th, would this cause you any particular hardship on this project?
Nah, the only thing is January 4th, not, the holidays hurt you, so I've got to deal with Pat Flaherty. I've got to sit down and start redrawing those. So that it.
Or the second meeting in January, if it were better for you,
Yeah.
But, I mean, in terms of the proceeding with the project,
We're trying to proceed, and the reason is we have to shut the restaurant down to tear the building down, and we want to do it in a timely fashion so that they can reopen as soon as they can. That's all.
so if you were to start a month later, perhaps, it wouldn't, create any significant hardship for you?
I suppose not, but it would be, I suppose not.
I would think that by the time you get the redesigns done and so forth, and then brought
I
them
might
back
not
to-
get the engineering done for the 4th. That's my problem.
So,
So it might go to,
would it be best if we went to the second meeting in January? Would that be
it
more
might be. It might be.
Acceptable to you and easier?
because I'm going to want to work with planning development to get the facade changes done anyways.
Okay,
When I started.
thank you.
15th.
So I would like to amend my motion.
Sure.
Make it I move to continue this public hearing until the second meeting in January.
January 21st.
21st.
Yeah, there'll be a Thursday night because we have the Monday holiday for Martin Luther King, which is the 18th, though City Hall will be closed. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to continue both the site plan and the special permit to January 21st.
I'll second that.
Motion's made and second. All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Okay. Joe, I still want to put in the condition, if you don't mind, that we get the report from the legal department.
Yes.
Oh,
So that way we keep it clear for that day. Hopefully, we can have it by then.
Yes,
So that makes a big determination, so that way it makes,
Yeah.
it's good for you.
Get it out of
And
the
it's
way.
good for your neighbor, so that way you know exactly how we
That's a good
stand. All right.
Thank
Now-
you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay,
Mr.
thank you.
Chairman, how does this legal situation constrain us? Can we act?
That works, I'll be right back.
If he has documentation that says he doesn't have a right to park there, then it could complicate the site plan, absolutely.
It could, I can certainly complicate his ability to get building permits and go forward, but, I mean, would it, but
But
for
for us,
us.
we're saying, then he wouldn't have the right to put the parking there. And so we don't see the parking on site,
So,
Because if he has the right to park there, and he's putting the parking there, then he wouldn't have the right to satisfy the parking under the site plan.
that's, okay.
Yeah, and I think we have two legal opinions. We got, Eric wrote his from staff, but it's good to get it from the law department.
What I'm trying to understand here is, would we be forbidden would we be unable to act based on that concern? Or are you saying it would be prudent for us not to
I would
act?
say if we don't know, then he would have a problem meeting the parking requirements on site.
If we don't know, then,
Because this other gentleman has the right to park on those spaces. This is where he's gonna put his parking for his business. So therefore, he's not satisfying the parking until we have a legal determination on who has the right to park there.
okay.
So would say, if he can't park those cars there, then he has to find additional parking for us to meet the parking requirement.
Okay.
So, I mean, I know we had a couple of opinions by two different lawyers here, and Eric looked it over, but like they always told us in the past, it's better to get it from the legal department, even though we have staff approval and something when it comes to legal, and obviously Eric could give, let them get Eric's opinion, let them get both the legal documents, and what one of them is saying is, Eric is saying that one property was bought prior to the other, so therefore the condition doesn't run with the land.
Right.
Yeah, that's what
right.
he's indicating by looking at what's been presented to him.
Right, I guess my question is about our own
Yeah.
administration and
Right.
how we are empowered or disempowered under
Yeah.
the zoning act.
Yeah.
Would it be lawful for us would it even be lawful for us to issue a permit if we knew that if he didn't show us control of that property? Would it merely be a bad idea, or would it be unlawful?
I think basically, it could be unlawful enough.
Okay.
Because then he's basically, I think the other gentlemen would have more right of appeal against us, so the fact that shows that he doesn't have we requisited parking, and he
Right.
shows that it's on his spot, and we brought to our attention, and we
wouldn't be.
didn't satisfy what the alternative was, but, so this way, let the legal department get it, we have a writing from the legal staff.
Okay.
And then if he says Mr. Marlowe's fine, if he says it's the other gentleman, then we're gonna say, well, now we need a whole new parking plan.
So if we were to, right, so if we were to issue a permit based and it had that legal problem, that wouldn't just be a bad performance by us, that would be an actual legal error.
Yeah, it
Okay.
would be, because he's brought it to our attention, and that way it's always better to what we've been taught in the past, and
Yep.
send it to the law department. Even Eric used to always say, if you have a question, send it to us, send it to us, send it to us. I said, well, sometimes, we don't send a lot of questions to him, but when it comes to a situation like this, the gentleman brought it to his opinion, he has one lawyer saying one thing, another lawyer saying another.
I see.
That's why I think it's easier just to let our legal staff handle it, so then it tells us legally which way to go.
Sure, that's the only way to
And
do it.
if they have to defend it later, then they have something to go on, because they've already done the research on the matter.
Exactly. Okay, good.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Mr. Chairman. That
Okay.
answers my question.
Good luck, okay. Moving along, the next matter is 142 Chestnut Street.
Evening.
Okay, just let me read the announcement, okay? Wait 1 second. Okay, 142 Chestnut Street, it's a site plan review administrative change. 142 LLC requests an amendment to a previously approved site plan for the demolition of a portion of the existing facility and convert the remainder of the structure into 4-unit dwelling. The project also includes the construction of 20 additional units with access to the site coming from Park Street. The applicant would like to demolish less of the existing structure and add 1 additional unit to the project. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Good evening, George Theodoro, representing Matthew Piccioni of 142 LLC. He is the owner and the developer of the property. A few months ago, when Mr. Piccioni was completing his demolition of the site, for which he got approval from the Historic Board to demolish what we call the dormitory structures that didn't have really any historical significance. And when doing that, there was a rear portion of what we call the Talbot House, which we had approval to restore the Talbot House and to repurpose it for residential units. There was a rear portion there that we thought had to come down. But in reviewing it back there in the demolition process, he came to the determination that part of that was part of the original structure, and it would compromise the integrity of the Talbot House. Now, Mr. Piccioni met with Attorney George Elides and Steve Stoll, the Lowell Historic Commission Administrator. It met with him specifically with the purpose of restoring that portion that was originally slated to be demolished. And they came to the determination with Mr. Stoll, and there's a letter there before you, to restore this portion of the Talbot House and to redevelop it into 1 additional unit. We thought that this was a good compromise there with respect to that structure, since it really did not make sense to demolish that portion. It would, as I said before, it would compromise the integrity of it. It just would not look good, and at the same time, we're able to restore what he determined to be the entire portion of the original Talbot House. So we are looking for approval from this board to approve this administrative change. And incidentally, we did meet with DPD. We went over this change, and they suggested that we come back to the planning board and show them what we intended to do. And then also, we'll be on the ZBA agenda for next week as well. This has been a long time in the making, I know. And Mr. Piccioni, at the present time, is excited about getting going with the project. Having completed most of the demolition, there's still some structural steel there that has to be removed. But
I believe if you, from a site visit, you see what a drastic change it is with those dormitories having been demolished. So we're excited to get moving on this and starting this project and bring it to completion.
Counsel, what relief do you need from ZBA? Would you have to go?
We're not looking for any relief from ZBA. We're merely going before ZBA to show this change of the previously approved plan.
Okay, because they gave you approval?
They
Okay,
did.
Okay, okay. I didn't know if there was anything additional or this, that, okay. That answers my question, okay. So basically, when you're looking at this plan here, it's what, Lot 2, that's gonna stay with the proposed addition that heads towards the rear?
That's correct.
Okay.
That lot 2, which has the proposed addition is just that small portion
Yeah,
back
was it
there.
8 by 16, I take it?
Right. That's that's the only new structure that's going to be added here. The remaining portion there is the existing portion of the Talbot House.
Okay.
And this existing portion of the Talbot House that we would like to redevelop into one unit consisting of 2 bedrooms will have a garage under to satisfy the parking for
Okay,
that unit.
yep,
And as
gotcha.
a matter of fact, it doesn't change any of the parking requirements for this site.
Right. That was my next question, okay.
Have any of these other units moved?
No. None of these, there's been
the only
no other change in this site plan.
Does the, do you still intend to go forward with that proposal to do the one-way?
Yes, we do. We still have to petition the city council to make the one-way traffic there on Chestnut Street,
Okay.
which is a requirement of the decision of the planning board.
Is there going to be a big sign or something that says Talbot Square?
We haven't gone into that as far as, that development yet or design, but the name of the project is Talbot Square. And the design review of this is still within the hands from beginning to end with the historic board.
Right.
So that may be some
Okay.
discussions that we would have with them.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd welcome, some dialogue on that and really dress it up and make it look nice, because it's a beautiful, if we had a chance to go through that, we did. We walked it, I don't know, a year ago or something, and it's really a beautiful house. Will look a little bit better with one more unit, I think, instead of tearing anything down.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Sure, Mr. Check, right ahead.
Just peeked into the locked fence in the back and took my photos and took a good look at the site. And I have to say, actually, it's unbelievable what a transformation with the other buildings down and the land cleared. And it's amazing how large the site is, actually. But visually, I think what you're looking at, and I didn't really look at, I don't think I really, upon initial approval with all the other structures, really focused on that back end of that, but I think it actually taking that almost detracts from the structure. I like the idea of leaving that. And then you're adding, now, from what protrudes out the rear, you're adding additional
Yeah,
space to that,
there's
right?
an 8 by 16 addition on the back.
Okay. And is that going to go the full height, or is that going to go?
Matt, could you,
Right, I see that.
we-
Yeah, it's
Okay.
just
we
gonna
we
stay
do
the
have shown
same.
on the plan a proposed addition of
Says
16
proposed
by
addition
18,
8.
Goes up 2
which is
stories.
the only thing right there. Is that the garage?
Go to 8 by 16.
I think what they have is something going over for the entrance of the garage. It's not a full structure, what that is.
Oh, okay, because that's why I was a little confused. I thought the whole idea was just to keep from demolishing the structure. You weren't looking to add additional structure. You just didn't
No.
want to demolish the
We-
existing
We
one.
want to
Yeah,
Yeah.
Refurbish what's there
right,
now.
right.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Those-
That may just be an overhang for the garage entrance.
Oh, that roof, oh, okay. Oh, that's, all right. Little deceiving.
So they're gonna do the original structure, just put one more unit inside that structure.
Okay.
And again, this proposed structure over here, again, is something that is all within the purview of the historic board.
Right.
Right.
As far as how it looks
How
aesthetically.
it looks, how it fits
Yeah.
in with the Talbot House.
And I think we put you through the mill with the appearance of it when you came through us the first time around, so.
Well, it was
Gone through a
well
lot of,
vetted.
Yeah.
Spent a little time on that back wall, I remember that.
Yeah, the back wall.
That and
wall,
the end units on the, oh yeah, no, and then splitting them up and, oh, absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
some of the neighbors came forward when you had the cut-throughs.
We have the public access areas
Yeah, remember
there.
before you didn't have that when we
Yeah, we
first
didn't have
started?
that.
Now they can come on off East Merrimack and cut
right,
through?
right,
We
right.
actually
Just
made
wonderful.
believers of
There was
the
some gentleman here
abutters.
that night, yeah. He said now that he can cut through to get to the park, he was very satisfied.
Okay, no, thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah, that makes
no,
sense.
that's good.
So basically, it's the same building, just one more unit in that building, so you're not adding anything to that building?
No.
Okay, gotcha, all right,
Yeah, no,
Gotcha. Okay.
for myself, Mr. Chairman, I'm fine with the,
okay,
what's being proposed here.
okay. Any board members have any comments, concerns?
Is the action that's being requested for us tonight is to find that this is not a substantial and material change?
We'd have to take that vote first, and then the next vote would be whether we want to amend the site plan. So the first would be whether substantial material change, and if we vote it is, then you have to come back for a public hearing. If we vote that it's not a substantial material change, then we can go ahead and make a recommendation on the administrative change for the site plan. So the first question is substantial material change.
Is there any guidance on how to determine if something's a
It's just your own
substantial
judgment.
material change?
No, I mean, a lot of it,
Discretionary, I like
yeah.
that.
I'll make a motion.
I mean, a lot of it comes in and you look at, is the parking access gonna be the same? Getting in and out gonna be the same? The number of units gonna be the same?
Yeah,
You
it's-
know, the water runoff gonna be the same? If that's, like, majority of everything is the same, and like here, that they're only putting one extra unit inside the existing building as it sits now, and it's picking up its only parking spot. So, I mean, you run off, the street closing, the back wall that we talked about, the grading, the cut-through, all those remain the same. So it's, when it comes down to how small of a change something is, I know we've dealt with something before that we thought was a major change, had to go back for public hearing, depending on how big it is, that's a factor as well. But basically, it's, I
I'm
think
thi-
Jerry said it best, yeah.
I'm thinking of the last two applicants, one of whom was continued, who came into us with a proposal to merely add one unit into his existing structure.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, how many units
The
we
one,
have here?
the one that's not being heard tonight because it was continued, he wanted to go from 2 to 3.
Could I add one item here? Just for argument's sake, if this were under the zoning ordinance, if this was a development that came under, with no new construction, with building or developing within the existing footprint of a building that was under complete jurisdiction of the historic board, there's an exemption in the zoning code 11.4.3, and that would be an exception to any site plan review. So this is a bit analogous to that, in which there's an existing building which we want to preserve, which is part of the historic Talbot House, that comes under the design review of the historic board. So, I think that adds a very good argument to determine or make a vote that site plan review, this does not come under the requirements of the site plan review.
I'm sorry, what number was that?
11.4.3.
0.4.3.
And this work for the development of this building is confined within the footprint of that building.
They keep it in the building, yeah. Like I say, remember how we had all the different traffic going in and out, we cut through, we spent all that.
As Mr. Chairman, for myself, I mean, looking at the, Mr. Boyle mentioned the project on School Street, but That's not even a case where we had to determine whether it was a material change. It's just that we had issues with the original proposal based on parking, and they're trying to work it out. But I think you look at a percentage of it. If there's 3 units, and you're talking 1/3 of the entire project, we're talking 20 units. And we're talking about, rather than tearing down a portion of the structure, keeping it, which is a change from the original proposal, but I think it's somewhat less invasive to the historic structure. And, from my perspective, I certainly would consider this to be, and it has all the required parking. So, again, from looking at it and applying a reasonableness standard to it, I do not see this as being a substantial or material change.
That's interesting.
I concur with that, and I would make a motion to that effect.
Okay. So Richard makes a motion that it's not a substantial material change. Do we have a second on that?
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Motion's made, second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Chair votes yes. Any opposition? Hearing none. That is allowed. Now we can vote on the administrative change to the site plan, or any comments thereof.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve an administrative change to the site plan
As requested?
as requested by the applicant.
Second that,
I'll
Mr.
I'll second that.
Okay.
I can,
Second by Bob. I'm sorry, Joe, what'd you say?
I just wanted to ask.
Sure, go ahead.
One
Go
more
right ahead.
question. It's actually a question for staff. Was there any input from staff on further considerations
Steve
or
signed the
conditions
letter.
we
Yeah,
ought to
we got
take?
the
No?
letter,
Okay,
He's the staff in
No.
this case.
okay.
No, we didn't have any further
I
recommendations.
think the only
And
letter we got was from Mr. Stoll, right?
Yeah, that's right here, yeah.
He had no problems as
He had no
indicated by
problem with
council.
it,
And we do have a copy of that in our packet.
And they met with us a few times and discussed it.
Right.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the site plan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Any opposition? Hearing none, that's approved. Good luck. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
nice-
very much.
Nice project.
Looking forward to the project.
Gotta go back to that later.
Looking fast. That is nice location.
Good night. Thank you. Good luck.
Traffic.
Okay, moving along, we have any further comments from staff or planning board members? Anything from staff, Judy, no?
I just have one thing. The Historic Board meets on the 14th of December, and we're going to look at the mill number 6, which is adjacent to mill number 4, the one we approved tonight. It's hard to see where it is, but, on that drawing that they showed, it's pretty evident where it is. It's beautiful, it's going to be beautiful down in that area, and it is going to bring, as the lady that was here said, mill space in Lowell redeveloped, 97% of it has been redeveloped and repurposed. That's pretty good, and that's going to contribute to that.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I have.
Anybody else? No? Anybody else? No? We could take a motion to adjourn then?
So moved?
Motion's made and
Second.
second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. We have adjourned, and happy holidays, everyone, because we don't meet again till the first of the year. So
Yeah.
wish everybody well. Thank you.